Hello, everyone. Babula and I are back with Astrology Now for you this time. And we'll be having a full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini. So there's lots to talk about there and a whole lot of other things for the rest of the month. So Babula, why don't you lead us off?
Okay, I will. Hi, everybody. Hi, Sheryl. So, as I'm sure most people are aware, we're in the month of Gemini. So all the Geminis are having their birthdays. So the sun's in Gemini, Mercury's in Gemini. He's preparing for a retrograde phase. We talked a bit about that last time. Venus is in Gemini, and we're having the full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini Sagittarius. So there's a big Gemini theme. And for all of you who've got planets in Gemini, or you are Geminis, or you know people who are Geminis, you'll have that sense of that's the part of us that's very much operating on the mental plane, the mind, communication ideas. This sign's particularly aligned with words.
Yeah.
Like actual words and language, like even little Gemini children from a very young age, their minds are somehow wired to language, and they pick up language very quickly. They pick up words. They're putting sentences together perhaps earlier than other children of the same age. You know, they're curious about words. They want to know what everything's called. They want to put a name to everything. They want to learn to write. They want to learn to read, because it's all about the words and the message and communication.
Yeah. Well, I have a moon in Gemini, and I've always been able to pick up other languages very quickly,
Yeah.
and I love listening to other languages. They're just,
Wow.
you're right. It's about words. It's about
Yes.
communication. Yeah.
Yes, it is. So the ears are really kind of attuned to that, and they're attuned to what's being said and picking up on what's being said, what's not being said, what they want to say, what the other is saying. It's a sign of tremendous curiosity.
So is it because in women's world we sort of operate in the lingo of subtleties? So do you think Geminis tend to pick up a lot more of that, or pick up on that more quickly, that moon in Gemini?
Around the spoken word, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to very often just love all the nuances, and like, you can imagine anyone who's a writer, and a lot of writers will usually have quite a bit of Gemini going on in their chart. They're not necessarily Gemini sun signs, but the Gemini energy will be there because there's this love of, finding, and it's not even that they have to work hard at finding the right word to express something they want to say. The words just come, they're just wired up to do that. Words just, you see Gemini people are very Geminian people in the media, in the public arena, who just have this gift for language. Sometimes we say they've got the gift of the gab, but really it's a gift for language. And if there's quite a high intelligence that goes with it, wow, it can be mesmerizing listening to them.
Yeah, but they can also be chatterboxes too, can't they?
Absolutely.
And gossips.
Absolutely. So on that kind of very basic human level, it's not a sign that, now there's always lots of provisos in a chart. There's always other things going on that might mitigate this. But I've actually known Geminis who leave the radio on in their house, for example, 24/7. It never gets turned off, because even if they're home on their own, they want the sense of company of having somebody else in the house chatting away.
Yeah.
And they're listening. It's a sense of connection, because it's actually all about connection for Gemini.
Yes, yeah. And they don't mind like sitting. I'm just thinking of my mum. She used to live by herself for quite a few years, but she lived on a main road, and she loved it because the world was whizzing by,
Exactly.
and she loved that, being able to engage in the world without actually having to move.
Exactly. And it is a sign that is more attuned with city life, for example, because it loves the buzz. Sagittarius, the opposite sign, is more inclined to want to be out in the country and the big wide open spaces.
Yep. Oh, you won't see me. I'll be on my horse and I'll be out of here. That's me.
Exactly. Exactly. But the Gemini loves that buzz of, fast moving transport, people on the move, conversations, lots going on, busy. It's sort of a natural fit. So I often think of that, Gemini is the city, Sagittarius is the country.
But if you have that Sagittarius Gemini axis in your chart, which I happen to, I mean, it's like, I love the city, but I love the country, but I love the city, but I love the country.
That's right. So you can do both, know.
Yeah.
And if you live in a city, then you need time out in the country and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like if you're living out in the country and you've got this Gemini Sag thing, then, what would be great fun and feel fabulous is to regularly pop into the city for a few days, and just fill yourself up with city life.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a stimulation.
Yes.
There's a fairly low boredom threshold here.
Yeah. And in the city, you've got that accessibility to that stimulation, don't you? Yeah.
That's right. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating sign. And, I was thinking about this before, and like even on a spiritual level, like the eclipses, and we're going to talk a lot more about the eclipses. So this is the lunar eclipse. So the moon will be in Sagittarius. It's full in opposition to the sun in Sagittarius. And 2 weeks after, there'll be the new moon solar eclipse in Gemini. So the whole energy of Gemini is really being heightened and highlighted. And, even spiritually, I was thinking about this, and even the other day, I looked back and I thought, oh, actually, that's what I'm doing the last few days. Things like mantras, prayers, invocations, and the words in those, poetry, anything that's like the written word or the spoken word that has a high spiritual vibration can be really, really powerful at this time, because it's not just a full moon and a new moon, it's a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. So that makes it extra potent. So I was really just, really tuning into that. And like, the yoga class I go to is run by she's a true yogi, she spent decades living in India in the yoga ashram and so on. And she always starts the class with a simple kind of mantra that we all chant. And lately there's been a very beautiful one that just comes with very simple hand gestures, and we just do this sequence. And I found myself walking out in the bush the other day, and I started singing this very simple mantra and doing this, because Gemini isn't only the words, it's the hands.
Hands, yeah.
And anyone who's ever had the experience of doing any kind of spiritual practice that involved the hands, when we're fully conscious and present, there is great power in the hands. A lot of those Buddhist statues and Indian statues, you'll see that the god or the goddess is sitting and they're holding certain mudras in their hands, and that's very powerful. That's just not some pretty pose.
Yes.
They're actually movements of power.
Yes, exactly.
Mudras of power. So the word and the hand and the fingers can be really quite amazing. And I think this is a pretty potent time to be aware of that, and for us to be really mindful of what we're speaking and what we're listening to. What kind of information are we listening to? What is the source of our information? How does it make us feel? Is it uplifting and inspiring and makes us feel good, or is it, bringing us to the brink of despair and depression? So I think it's so easy to think of Gemini as a bit of a superficial light sign without any real significance, but it's actually not true at all. It's a really important part of human life.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's something for us all to be aware of over these few weeks, and just to notice what comes up in conversations with people. What's being said, what's being misinterpreted, misunderstood. do we maybe need to go back and clear something up? Do we need to even apologize and say, look, I was really out of line. I'm sorry. I was just in a big reaction, you know?
Yeah. It's like, I'm just, while you're talking, I'm thinking that this relates to the throat chakra, and this Anandakanda center as well, because it's the communication from the heart, right, as well. Yeah. It's very much about this part of our body here.
Exactly, Sheryl, and our lungs and breath and air.
Yes.
And, you know, are we breathing? You know, yoga has the very, very ancient, you know, all these amazing, simple but profound breathing exercises. And, you know, what's happening in our lungs and our chest, and are we open or closed here? Yeah. And the Anandakanda here, that turquoise area that you mentioned, that brings me to, you know, not in our astrology, we say Mercury rules or governs Gemini, but in esoteric astrology, the esoteric system based on the 7 rays, Venus is actually the ruler. Yes, which is fascinating. And Venus is in Gemini now.
Yes.
And so that is a lot to do with what you just said, you know, connecting the mind and our words and our heart, so that we're actually trying to be aware to communicate from here.
Yes.
And not just from there.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that connection. Because that's what Geminis do. They're all about connection, aren't they? They'll just meet and have a chat with anybody because they want to connect.
I'm just thinking about my mum, who's a Gemini, and she just used to sit on the bus at the bus stop and just talk to anyone who came along. Reminded me of a budgie sitting on a perch, you know. They do.
They just chat to anybody.
I know, yeah.
My son's a Gemini, and as a kid going to school, he'd make friends with other kids on the bus. He'd never met them before. What's that got to do with anything? You just connect, you know, and have a chat, and you know, before you know it, he's made a new friend, and very, very quickly it can happen.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So all right, so let's backtrack a little bit, and I'll just kind of go through some dates, and we can pick up more of these threads as we go. So the sun moved into Gemini on the 21st of May, and will be in Gemini for 4 weeks, through to roughly the same date in June. So on the 23rd, which is a couple of days before the eclipse, but it's really worth mentioning, our dear friend Saturn, for the last week or so, has slowed right down from our perspective on Earth anyway, and has come to a stationary point. We call it the station of a planet, when it slows right down to either move retrograde or turn direct again. So, you know, Saturn's one of the heavyweights, you could say. And, you know, its most challenging qualities, we can often feel a bit stuck, heavy, weighed down, burdened by extra workloads, responsibilities, like, oh God, it just feels really tough right now. That can happen when Saturn's having a big impact on us individually or collectively. So when Saturn comes to a stationary point, it can feel quite heavy, and it will vary for everybody according to how that's positioned in our own birth chart. Like for me, it hasn't felt heavy. I've just had my nose to the grindstone. Like I've just had to stay very focused, because it's actually making some quite nice harmonious aspects to my chart. So it's been beneficial, but I'm kind of going, I could do with a break about now.
Yeah, I've been going through the same thing for the last 2 weeks, actually. And
it's been about that long.
Yeah, and it's been under the pump. Go.
Yes, day after day. And you're thinking, I could do with a day off, day after day after day. Yeah. So that's very Saturn. And I've been actually traveling quite well with it, but sometimes those Saturn energies, they can really kind of bring us to our knees.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, so it will actually technically turn retrograde, or he, by the time people are listening to this, he's turned retrograde on the 23rd at 13 degrees of Aquarius. Yep. So, he's been moving through those first 13 degrees of Aquarius since December. Is now going to go back for 5 months, back over some of that old territory. So, Saturn retrograde is a period of reassessment, reevaluation, reorganizing. Great period to get organized, to go through all your paperwork, clean up your website, sort out your files, clean out your pantry. And it's not about being clean and tidy. It's about getting organized.
Yes. Yep.
Getting your systems in place.
Yeah.
Getting things functional and getting rid of stuff. And like Saturn loves to get the pruning shears out and go, no, you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that either. Strip it back down to the basics. And look, that might even happen because it's in Aquarius. You might find that's happening with some of your friendships.
Yeah.
Or people in your life. You're going, I don't really want to hang out with that person anymore. That might come up for some people. And
on the world stage, well, let's just talk about Australia, I guess. There's now talk about vaccine passports just to fly in within Australia, for Australians to fly in Australia. And that's very Saturn in Aquarius, isn't it?
It is, because Aquarius is about the people and our freedoms and our rights.
Yeah.
And Saturn is the hand of law, government, rules, dictates, mandates. Mandates aren't actually law, but they like to, con us that they are, and they're actually not. But that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So things could, in that area, things could get a bit heavy going for a while as they try this on, because it feels like that's what they're doing. They're trying this on. And some people will go along with it because I think it sounds like a good idea. But it's pushing more and more people to go, wait a minute, that's going too far, because it is.
Yes. Oh, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Completely ridiculous.
That's what people will say.
That's right. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's, I think one of the great things about Saturn, and he never makes it easy for us, but he helps us to clarify things. We get a bit clear, like, not doing that.
Yes.
That's not happening. Not going to do that.
Yeah.
So for some people, this might be such an important thing that they go, you know what? I'm going to completely restructure my whole life, not just my cupboards, so for some, it might be a time when they're going to make a big life-changing decision.
Yes. Yeah. And I think in response to restrictions.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Completely unreasonable restrictions.
Yeah.
For what?
It sort of comes up, if that's the way you want to play it, well, then I'm going completely the opposite direction.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And remember, this year, Saturn is an important energy because it's making the squares to Uranus. And next month will be the second of the 3 squares will come, and it will be while Saturn is doing this retrograde. And it will be a strong square. And big things like what's happening in Israel and Palestine at the moment. I'm sort of looking at this at Israel's chart, and Israel's chart's a very strong chart, and these energies are absolutely triggering.
Yeah.
A lot of that. So, these things play out in the world stage, in countries, but also, individually in our own lives on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
That's right. But the other really, one of the key things about Saturn is that he demands that we take responsibility, ownership, that we own up to our own foibles and transgressions, things like that we kind of face things as they are.
Yes.
And grow up, basically. He's the master of maturity.
Yeah. Like, this is the reality. Face it.
Face it. That's right. So that's important. So Saturn, so while we're in eclipse season now, which we are, every 6 months we come into an eclipse period, and it's always a big time of change, of crisis, of critical points, critical things come up, catalysts for change, big things happen. Very, very often when the eclipses are running, like very key people in the world die, like, you know, your favorite rock star, your favorite movie star, a politician who's been very big on the world scene, you know, people like that, suddenly they're gone. And it can have a real impact, you know, because it might have been like, you know, what comes to mind, I'll say it just because it's in my mind right now, like David Bowie, you know, like something like that happens and the whole world goes, oh my God, have you heard David Bowie's just died? You know, those kinds of things often happen around eclipses. Yeah, or even people in our own life depart around eclipses.
Well, for me, it'd be William Shatner because I'm a Trekkie.
Yes, I know.
He's still kicking at 90.
He is, and he's still questioning everything and curious about everything and the mysteries of life. Yeah. Fascinating character, isn't he?
Yes.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. And fun too. So then we come to the 26th. And that is when the lunar eclipse actually occurs. And a very cool thing about this one, I'm just getting the exact time, 9:13 p.m. Brisbane time, is that if it's a clear night, it will be visible to us.
Lunar eclipse.
And it's going to, you know, it'll go through those long stages when the shadow will pass over the moon. It sort of peaks, you know, between 9 and 9:30 when the moon, because it's a total lunar eclipse, it will be what they call a blood moon. It will be red because it's a total eclipse. And because the shadow completely of the earth will completely cover the moon. So, you know, you could probably start watching it from, you know, 8:30 and slowly over a period of a couple of hours, we'll see that shadow. So, yeah, if it's a clear night, great opportunity to go out and have a look.
Well, that's good to know because we've just got a camera with a tracker so that we can track planets. So, yeah, we might be able to capture it on camera.
Fantastic. And an astrologer friend of mine has just got a new U-boot telescope, so she's excited as well, and, you know, hoping for a clear night. So that'd be great. And it's also, like, every year there's a couple of what has become a very common term, supermoons. And it just means that certain full moons, the moon is a bit closer to the earth, so it appears bigger and brighter. There are 3 supermoons this year, full moons in a row, and this is the biggest of them.
Oh, wow.
So it's a total lunar eclipse, a blood moon, and a supermoon. So, you know, if the skies are clear, it should look very spectacular. And I imagine that there'll be no parking space on Mount Cootha because that's such a good viewing spot.
Yeah. Where was that?
Oh, Mount Cootha.
Oh, yes.
You know how everybody heads up to Mount Cootha when there's something going on in the skies like that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that eclipse, it's the full moon. The moon will be full at 5 degrees of Sagittarius with the sun at 5 degrees of Gemini. So it's right across that Gemini-Sag axis. So, you know, Gemini is information and knowledge. Gemini is also the sign of duality, isn't it? It's, you know, the twins, siblings, brothers and sisters, sisters and sisters. Like you might find you've suddenly got contact with a sibling you haven't heard of for a while, or something's happened with a sibling, or there's something going on there.
I'm also thinking about, like, just the moon itself relates to the unconscious.
Yes.
To the mother, those sorts of things, you know.
Yes. Yes. Information can come to light.
Yeah.
You know, on this kind of on this full moon. Remember, this full moon happens every year at this time. It's just that this time it just happens to be an eclipse. So it's just got a lot of added power to it. And then Sagittarius, which is where the moon actually will be, opposite the sun in Gemini, has got a lot to do, as we know, with truth and knowledge and higher knowledge. And so that whole axis between those two signs can be a lot of stuff around, is this information correct? Is it true? Is it a lie? Is it, where did you hear that from? Who said that?
Yeah.
This kind of thing.
How do you know?
Yeah, that's right. And the media, where's the proof? The media is very much connected to these signs. All the different types of media that we now engage with. Long gone are the days when we all got a newspaper thrown over the front fence. And
I still remember them though.
I still remember them too. Like, that's long gone. We've got information flying in from so many directions now. I mean, that's also true. We can also just feel like we're just overwhelmed with information coming in from every direction and messages.
So, but Sagittarius is a benevolent sign too, and optimistic. So maybe some information might come that's hopeful and optimistic and
exactly.
Turned a corner there. Where's that going? That looks good.
Exactly, because it's very, very expansive. And I can't help but think, because it's sort of around me while I'm talking, I can't help but think that you'll know this very much, because this is your field, that there seems to be a lot more coming into the public arena about UFOs and aliens and so on.
Absolutely. It is huge.
Very interesting. It's really coming forward now.
Yes, it's disclosure.
Yes.
It's another step in disclosure, and it's a big step.
That's right. And some are saying that the government in America particularly is going to be managing it in a way to manipulate people's way of thinking about it. So it's not just straightforward, There's, I think, with everything now, everything that comes in the media, we've got to be alert to,
Yeah.
Is that true? Like, maybe I need to check another source and see, because you get two opposing opinions about.
Well, here's the problem, Babula, is that because I've been doing a few interviews in this last week about all of that, and about UFO reports in Queensland, and you're getting people who you can give them the information, but they will not believe it. It's the opposite, So there's the denial of the truth too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so people don't want to take things on board and accept it. So there's that sort of like a kick in the stomach for good old Gemini, and Sagittarius, because Gemini is giving information and Sagittarius saying this is the truth, but then people say, no, that can't be true.
That could possibly be true. Yeah. Yes, that's right. And so it's discarded. That's right.
Yeah.
I know. It's very now. And the other thing about all of this, we've still got Neptune is in Pisces, and Jupiter is now in Pisces for a while. So Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces are mutable signs. And as we go through the sequence of the movements of planets, what struck me like about 2 weeks ago, and I started to look ahead and thought, wow, there's a lot of mutable energy here, because these are mutable signs. The 4 mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces.
Yes.
And in the mutable signs, we're looking at information, knowledge, ideas, movement, everything changes. These, like the fixed signs that come before them, tend to hold energy and build energy. They're signs of power and strength. And then after every fixed sign, a mutable sign comes, and it disperses all of that. It moves it, it shifts it. It's so there's the dispersal and the dissemination of information and ideas in all the different ways that those 4 signs represent. And so there's a lot of movement here.
Yes.
And over this, over these next couple of weeks, we're going to find that things are going to move really quickly. Things are going to change quickly. Conversations can trigger things very, very quickly. Just one little thing somebody says can spark off something. Yeah.
It's interesting, because just this morning, it's like suddenly, you put things together, you go, oh, because we had, I'll just tell people briefly, but we had a report of a triangular shaped UFO over the Gold Coast. I think it was a week or two ago. And then I heard from the New Zealand group that they had some reports of triangular UFOs. Oh, that's interesting. And then I was just going back over a UFO researcher's website, and he had a report of a triangular UFO before the ones that we've received. And actually, it was footage that was taken near the International Space Station. And this is all very Aquarian, isn't it? All the spaceships and aliens, all this information that's coming out. And suddenly I went, oh my gosh, there's the three of us who've had these reports recently, you know.
Wow.
So aha.
That's right. Connections, you know, all these things start to connect. You know, that phrase that we've heard a lot in the last 15 months, like connect the dots.
Yes.
This is absolutely connect the dots territory.
Yep.
And sometimes that other little piece of information that just dropped in from over there, suddenly everything links up.
Yes.
Yeah. And you see the story or the picture.
Yes. Yes.
Story is another great word for, like, Gemini to me is also the storyteller. You know, so, and of course, you know, a story can be a fib or a lie, or it can just be that wonderful, like the story that we make in our imagination. You know how we all like to read a good novel that's a great story, or watch a great movie or a series because it's a great story.
So it could be like a bard who travels the road and tells everyone, makes up all these great stories, or records the stories and then embellishes a little bit to make them interesting.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So so the eclipse. So yeah, just like be really aware that everything can get very heightened, a little bit on the extreme side. And it might even just be that your days are just so busy. There's so much going on because you're getting messages coming in and appointments, and suddenly you have to be here and go there and drop what you're doing and deal with that. You know, moves like that with this kind of energy. So we take a breath, because Gemini is the lungs and breath and air. Don't forget to breathe. And Sag, you know, like really simple stuff. Like Geminis are often the runners. They just got to get out there and run. They're going to run. Swift, like Hermes. Sagittarius is more the sports player, you know, like running, but it'll be long distance, or playing sport, or going hiking in the mountains, or going bushwalking all day long, you know, out there in the country and out in nature and, you know, in the great outdoors, as we say, you know.
Yeah, so it's enduring activity.
Yes. So that kind of movement is very, very beneficial. So otherwise we get stuck in our head with this. Yes. We're all up here in our mind. And so I said I've been busy, and I was on the computer most of the day, and at some point I thought, okay, I've done this, and this, ticked off my list, go for a walk. And I have to make myself, because, you know, there's still more things on the list. But it was so good to get outside and just go for a walk and breathe.
Yeah, it rebalances, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So that's the 26th. On the 28th, Venus in Gemini will make a square to Neptune. And I'm bringing that in for a reason, because Neptune's in Pisces around 22, 23. And over the next weeks, as Venus, Mercury and the Sun move through Gemini, there's going to be this whole series of squares that those planets will make to the planet Neptune. And that can bring in an energy of, at times it can feel confusing, overwhelming. You know, times we just go, like, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't even think straight.
So we have Venus in Gemini squaring
Neptune on the 28th.
Oh, yes.
I'm just going to read this sequence through just to sort of illustrate what I'm saying. So Venus squares Neptune, and there's lots I can say about each one, on the 28th. On the 29th, Mercury makes a conjunction with Venus at 24 of Gemini. Then the next day, on the 30th, Mercury turns retrograde at 24 of Gemini.
Oh, okay. Check your computer.
Yep. That's right. So Mercury retrograde coming up, and it's coming up in Gemini, its own sign.
Yes.
So Mercury's powerful in its own sign. It's going to spend a long time here because it's doing this. It's slowing right down now. It's really slowed right down.
So how long is that retrograde phase?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. I thought it was, yeah.
3 weeks of fun and mayhem with Mercury retrograde in Gemini, and squaring Neptune, which can bring in just, confusion or overwhelm. But, the other interesting thing about Gemini and Pisces certainly is that there's a lot of sensitivity here. The sensitivity of Gemini is to do with the nervous system. We sometimes say someone's a bit highly strung.
Yep.
That can be this kind of combination where we can get really out of our body. The mind and the nervous system are overstimulated, and we've gotten very ungrounded, and we're just wired. So it's so important to breathe, get into the body, do your yoga, go walking, go to the gym, drink plenty of water, whatever those things that we do that we know help us to come back into the body.
Yeah. So people could have panic attacks.
Could do.
Like that,
anxiety. Because when we get a bit ungrounded and out of the body, that absolutely we get very stressed.
Yeah.
And distressed. Yeah. So Mercury turns retrograde on the 30th for 3 weeks. Then on the 1st, the sun will be conjunct the North Node in Gemini, because all year the North Node's been moving backwards through the sign of Gemini. So the sun meets the North Node at 10 degrees of Gemini. And look, that could be, for some people, it could be there's an important information that happens that day, or an important decision is made, or you make a phone call that you might have been putting off, or somebody contacts you and it's significant in some way. There's something always significant around the North Node. And then, just staying on the same theme, on the 6th, Mercury going back squares Neptune again.
Okay.
You see, so that's kind of a bit of an ongoing theme there. Yeah. And then that will lead us into the 10th, when we have the new moon, which is always 2 weeks after the full moon, and that new moon will be a solar eclipse at 19 degrees of Gemini.
Wow.
I know.
Gemini.
Yes, it's like Gemini. And so to have these eclipses going on in Gemini with Mercury retrograde in Gemini.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot. And these aspects to Neptune in Pisces, it is a lot. It is a lot to process and digest. It's not a heavy energy.
It's just swift.
It's swift, it's fast, it's a lot of mind energy as well,
Yeah. It's
and
information coming in like this.
Yes.
And you go, what was that? I missed it.
That's right. That's right. And I always say, when the mutable energy is predominant, and some people in their own birth chart will have a lot of mutable energy, so they'll just go, yeah, that sounds good to me. But if you don't, this might be a bit like, I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah.
But I think the way to be with mutable energy is we have to stay really loose. Mutable signs are about being fluid, loose, flexible, adaptable. Don't get fixed on anything. Keep it loose, stay available, stay open. You think it's this, and then it changes and it's something else.
And then it's adaptability, exactly.
You've got to be very adaptable,
And it's that didn't happen. Oh, well, next,
That's right.
Yeah.
So, you're a Sag with a Gemini moon. You go, yep, that sounds like my life.
It does.
In many ways, that's right. I've got to
reordering, of prioritizing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the mutable signs actually like change. They don't want things to stay the same.
No, it's boring.
It's very boring for the mutable signs.
Yeah. But earth signs, poor earth signs. They love it. Stay the same forever, please.
I know. So yeah, the mutability is the theme now over these next few weeks. And, you know, you could just look up the meaning of the word mutable and, you know, you'll see it's like shape-shifting. It reminds me of magicians and magic. In fact, magicians are ruled by the planet Mercury and the sign of Gemini, because while they're doing their magic, what are they doing? They're moving their hands really quickly. Things are happening. They're chatting, they're talking, they're distracting you. They're like, you know, and all of a sudden something's, and you go, where'd that come from?
Yeah, yeah. Watch the government.
Tricky.
Yes.
Sleight of hand.
Yes.
Is what they're speaking actually the exact opposite, which it often is actually.
Yeah.
It's often the exact opposite.
Yeah, doing something over here to distract us.
Exactly.
While something over here is going on.
The real deal's going on over here. That's right, the real story. Exactly. And we're very easily distractible.
Yes.
We live in a world that's full of distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the mind has become addicted to it.
It really has. We find it more and more difficult now. Like, I've started taking my little grandchildren on the train. They love it, just for fun, you know, little outings. And I sit, you know, and it's on the weekends when the trains aren't busy. And I don't mean this in a judgmental way, because I get it. Hardly anybody is sitting on the train without looking at their phone.
Oh, yeah.
So, because that's just how we are now.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because when we're just sitting there looking outside, we're very whimsical. You know, our mind is free.
Our mind is free.
It's occupied.
That's right. And it's actually not free to just travel. It's honing in on something, and something's telling us something.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would say on that, this is where the Neptune can come in a very beneficial way. It would be really helpful to take time out to let the mind literally just take flight. Flights of fancy. Let your imagination go. Write stories, tell stories, get together with friends, keep your phones in your bag and just hang out and chat and have a great conversation and laugh, you know. It's a very sociable sign, but put the phone away. You know, and because we've all got plenty of time to do the technology, but sometimes we just need to be with people, don't we?
We do, yeah. Yeah. I hope that that people learn that as time goes on, because I would hate to see us become a very insular society.
That's right.
You know, with, you know, in regard to how we use technology, but lose connections with actual people.
That's right. And life around us, you know, like sitting on the train and just gazing out the window and just watching the world go by. And
yet I feel that it's going to go down that track, because I was seeing something about in the news, one of the news stories about how you can actually sit and have conversations with your deceased loved ones, but it's all the computer algorithms from all the information that's been collected, and you can sit and speak to them, have conversations with Einstein, you know, those sorts of things. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do go down that track.
Wow, interesting. Yes. And that sort of brings me to another aspect of communication with Gemini. Like it's our own internal communication with different parts of ourselves, but I'm thinking also of, you know, this could be a period where more people start to actually tune in and commune with other dimensions even. Because communication isn't only just us sitting here having a chat.
Yep.
You know, like, you know, I'm sure there's many beings with me and you right now, kind of as part of this conversation that we're not necessarily hearing or seeing, but it's also that capacity as well. You know, communication happens on so many levels, doesn't it?
Yes, with those who populate the unseen realms.
That's right.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily, I mean, they deceased loved ones, but also nature spirits and devas.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah, all sorts of the aliens. Everything.
Exactly. In fact, in nature, you know, Gemini is definitely the breath and the breeze and the wind and the air, but it is also those winged beings. You know, it's birds. It's also angels and fairies.
Yes.
And so on.
Mm.
It absolutely is that, you know. So I think with Jupiter now in Pisces squaring Gemini and Neptune in Pisces squaring Gemini, let's open ourselves to those realms and to connecting and meeting and communicating with, you know, even if it's not even a verbal visual thing, it's just tuning in and
Just sitting still and like, you know, a lot of people want guidance in their life and look to others, but if they just sit still and say, I'd like some guidance around this particular issue, and then just be receptive to receiving information.
In whatever message form it comes.
Yeah.
So messages, absolutely. It's a sign of messages. Okay, great. So let me just go back and look at a couple of other themes. So Mars is currently in Cancer until the 11th. So we'll talk more about that next time when we meet for the solar eclipse, the new moon. So Mars is in Cancer. And Mars, of course, is that masculine yang warrior energy currently in a very feminine sign, a sign that's all about nurturing and support and emotional bonding and union and family and home and so on. So for some, that might simply mean like you're in a period where you're quite busy and dynamic on the home front, or there's a lot going on in the family, or you know, you're making decisions about your house and where are you living and where are you going to live, and you're going to sell your house or remodel your house. You know, all those kinds of things can come up.
Yep. Or you're renting and suddenly the owners want to sell and you've got to get out.
It's happened to me. That's right. And suddenly you've got to move, you've got to make decisions and take action and so on. It's happening on your home front, in your personal world. And it can also stir up, like Cancer as a water sign is the realm of feelings and emotions. So when Mars gets in here, it can really start heating that up.
Yes.
So with loved ones or family members who may or may not be loved ones, but, you know, family members, there could be a bit of feisty, argy-bargy stuff going on for some people in that realm, you know.
So when is that?
Well, that's Mars is in Cancer for about 5 weeks.
Oh,
It's been there for a little while now, and is there through to the 11th of June.
Right. Okay.
When it will leave Cancer and go into Leo, which is probably a bit more to Mars's liking, you know, a fire sign. But yeah, so while it's in Cancer, or you might just suddenly be finding yourself going, God, I'm just doing a lot of cooking lately. I feel like cooking. You know, there's energy and motivation. Mars gives us energy and drive and motivation and action to do with the home, your family, your personal world.
Interesting.
And of course, you know, in everyone's chart, that depends what house that sits in your chart. That would sort of tell you what area of your life that's happening.
Yes.
Specifically, you know. Yeah. Pennies dropping.
Oh yes.
Not
for me, for people in my family though.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I'm more the Sag Gemini information for me this time.
That's very much an alignment for you, isn't it? And that's right. And so staying with the Cancerian energy, so Venus is currently in Gemini, but she's going to leave Gemini soon on the 2nd of June, and she will go into Cancer. Now, Venus is probably, you know, looking at this in simplistic ways, Venus is actually, not probably, she is actually a bit more aligned with a sign like Cancer than Mars is. Venus is a feminine energy. It's the heart, it's love, the love principle, women. Cancer is a feminine sign, ruled by the moon. So when Venus comes into Cancer, coming in behind Mars, and she'll be there for longer than, she'll still be there by the time Mars has left Cancer. But so Venus brings the love principle into our personal world, family, close, intimate connections, mother, children, food, domesticity, those kinds of areas. So that's actually a lovely one, Venus into Cancer. And following on from that, for that first week of June, as Venus moves into Cancer, it's going to make these gorgeous trine to Jupiter.
Oh.
That's the kind of trances that, lights astrologers up. We go, oh, yum. That's a really nice one. Venus trine Jupiter is the two benefics, the two bright stars in the sky, the two kind of beneficial, beautiful energies coming into a gorgeous, harmonious relationship with each other in the water sign. So that first week of June, bearing everything else that's going on, but that's bringing in a really lovely, positive energy, a feel-good kind of energy. Like even if you just commit, like every night I'm going to sit and soak in a long, hot, gorgeous bath, get into the water or go to the beach or take time out to actually enjoy, because Venus is also about pleasure. And I think in this world we live in, we don't give pleasure its due nearly enough, just to do what gives us pleasure and enjoyment.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah. So that's an opportunity for a bit of kind of bit of relaxation time if we can find that.
Yeah.
With all this Gemini and energy bouncing around. That's about it.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said. That's quite a bit. It's a bit to work with.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and move along with.
Yeah.
And
so yeah.
Try not to say no, that's not happening. Just go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Breathe. It's going to be quite busy.
Yes.
Yeah, which will suit some more than others.
Yes.
Yeah. Some thrive on that. I love it. It's like, yeah, this is great. All these things are happening, and others just, I wish somebody would hit the pause button.
I feel a bit worn out just talking about all.
I know.
It's like, oh.
Yeah. It's quite buzzy.
It is buzzy. Yeah, that's the word, buzzy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Fast. Well, there you go, folks. That's it. And I think that's enough for this time. Yeah. And actually, I'm just noticing, I know I'm a little bit tired, but I'm just thinking, how our energy is different every time we talk about different aspects,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, people watching might notice that too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the way it happens. Yeah.
It is. All right, everyone. Well, it's been great joining you, Babula. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Sheryl.
And we will see you all again in another 2 weeks.
Fantastic.
For the next solar eclipse.
Yeah.
Wow.
Happy sky gazing, folks.
Yes.
Hope you have clear skies.
Yes, I hope we get some photos of that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All right. Bye for now.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.